listening to Night Callers Big.
Good evening and welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. You're here with your host, Lauren Smith, and the gentleman from Irish Bigfoot Research Organization. How are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing good, Lauren. Thanks very much for having us. It's been a long time coming. We know we have talked several times about coming on, and we're really trying to organize this for a long time, for nearly a year, I believe.
Yes.
But at last we're here. So
you're here. It's worth the wait. It's absolutely worth the wait. I know we've been, like you said, chatting for over a year about bringing you guys on, but now you have not only one documentary, but the second film under your belt. So I'm excited to talk about that. And we also have the members of your team here. We have Chris Dawson and Ron Madden with us. I'm sorry. How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren. How's things?
Good.
I'm actually out in the woods, so if your viewers see something walking behind me, I can't be held responsible for the actions of the Woodwose. So,
Yes.
well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So yeah, Chris is on location right now. He is live in the field. I told him I appreciate his sacrifice. So if something comes up and grabs him, or we get any kind of vocals or anything, we'll all be really excited, but yeah, we can't be held accountable for his actions either.
You'll probably see the screen going like this.
No. I'm excited you're out. I told him already, like, he can stop us at any time and let us know he's hearing something or whatever. So that's really awesome. We all get to be live in Ireland right now, you guys. That's great.
It's great.
Yeah. And Ron, how are you?
Not too bad, no, thank you. I'm in a safer zone here.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll just go ahead and get started here if you guys don't mind.
Okay.
So I posted this show. I finally posted my Ireland Bigfoot show, and I'm so excited about it. And I started getting feedback. Well, there are no Bigfoot in Ireland. So how do you guys feel about that?
I think I'll let Chris answer that one.
Okay.
Well, I suppose that the logical sort of answer to that would be the evidence. Besides the witness reports, our own encounters in the field and those sorts of things was all really had to be taken at face value. It's really the evidence-based material that would add to that, and we find exactly the same prints here in Ireland as you guys do in the States. We actually find two types of print, one which is clearly your standard Squatch print, and the other which is the one is the Woodwose print, and it is actually very similar to a Neanderthal print. So there's a lot of belief that, obviously, which we can come into later on, Lauren, that the Woodwose is a relic Neanderthal type creature.
Okay.
It's not just as big as the Irish Squatch. But then, of course, a lot of Bigfoot researchers across the world believe that Bigfoots make structurs in the forest, and we find exactly the same things here.
Mm-hmm.
We find huge 60, 70 feet bends, teepees, all the same ground cliffs and all those sorts of things. Now, of course, people would argue that can be man-made or whatever, but I mean, when you find a bend that's maybe 60 feet tall, a huge conifer tree bent over and pushed into the ground and wedged into the ground in the middle of the forest, miles from any road, it begs the question of to how that happened. I mean, the wind didn't do that in Ireland, nor did it do it the one in the States. And certainly machinery coming through that far into the forest would not be an option.
Right. Right. So based on what you said, the same reason that we believe that we have Bigfoot or Sasquatch here is witness encounters, and evidence, and just an anthropological history that would support that over there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, the witness encounters and stuff, and their own encounters are the backbone, obviously, of things, like just as they are across the water, across the pond. Those are the backbone of investigations. But definitely the same evidence that's found here is unbelievable on how similar it actually is, you know.
Right. No, that's well said. You know, I think that, like we were chatting earlier before the show, and you said that for someone being from America and saying, well, there's no Bigfoot over there when they've never been there and researched that area would be the same as you guys saying there's no Bigfoot here because you've never been here. So I think, you know, as researchers, we need to keep an open mind that unless it's an island, you know, off the coast of Antarctica or something, you know, Ireland does have the ecosystem to support this creature.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's only a few thousand years from Ireland was joined with continental Europe, you know. There was a land bridge there, and it only filled with water when the ice melted from the ice age, you know. So, I mean, mammoths were here. Mammoths, giant woolly rhinos, all those big creatures were all here. Their bones are all found here. So if they can get here, then a hominid that's maybe 10 foot tall, which is nowhere near the height of a mammoth, can get here too, you know.
Absolutely. Very well said. So, okay, I wanted to, I had a question from the chat. Before the chat even started, I was getting questions about this show, and this listener wants to know, does Bigfoot have an accent over there?
That would be Chris again.
Yeah, well,
Chris again.
That's me, that one. Yeah, strangely enough, obviously we can't prove that one, but I have actually heard them shot quite a few times. I know Jim and Ron have heard some vocalizations as well. But they've actually said hello to me, both in Irish and English. And hello in Irish is Diadit. And I've heard that spoken to me. And I've heard hello in a very deep voice. And I have to say the hello was like any other hello, you know. But the Diadit did actually come across in like an Irish accent. So, which was very, very strange.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. I mean, it makes sense that if they listen to you guys talk all day, they're going to speak like you. But so in answer to your question, listener, yes, the Bigfoot in Ireland have an accent as well. I just laughed when I heard that question. I thought that was great. Okay, so I'm going to start with Chris. What got you started in this topic?
Probably the legend of Boggy Creek.
Really?
Yeah, we're going right back to the 70s. Yeah, so I mean, I was born in 75. I think I seen the legend of Boggy Creek when I was 3 in 78. So I mean, I probably watched half it and then ran behind the sofa for the second half. And probably had nightmares for about 2 weeks after it, you know. But really, from then, right through my childhood, I did sort of wean off it a little bit during the 90s. Like everybody else, when they're young, they're running about and they're having a drink and all that sort of stuff with the ladies and the guys. But of course, then I went back to my roots after that. But with regards to research, only actually researching in Ireland now about 3 years. I was quite prominent across most of the Facebook groups before that for years. And it's actually a sighting that happened in my local area where I am now that sparked the interest in the actual research end of it, you know. And I'm actually sitting now about 50 yards from that location where the witness seen that time. And that really sparked my investigations because I wanted to say, like, okay, I mean, somebody has said that there's a Bigfoot in my area, so I'm going to go and investigate that. And it didn't actually take too long to find out, you know.
Okay, and then you said
that's really the root.
Okay, that's what got you into it. And then you said where you are right now. Literally where you're sitting, you had an experience.
Yeah, well, this area here, Lauren, is probably one of the most active areas in Ireland. It never ceases to amaze. It's just non-stop. But yeah, I've had one encounter here myself. It was August 2019, just last year, and I was actually sitting in exactly the same spot. It was dusk. I had a big lamp with me. I actually have it here with me now today as well. And I thought maybe the batteries were sort of weaning off a little bit, so I said I'll change the batteries before it gets dark. So there's a big log, there's a big trunk here rather beside me, and I set the batteries on the trunk, and I think whatever it wasn't too happy that I was setting batteries on the trunk. And as soon as I set the first battery on the trunk, the growling started.
Okay.
Just for your listeners, Lauren, about a month previous to that, I had seen a big cat, a black panther, on my way home from work. One night, it was 12:45 a.m. actually, and it just crossed the road as cool as you like in front of me. So that was the first thing entered my mind on this occasion, that because it wasn't that far from where I seen the cat. Actually, it was only about 5 miles. So that's the first thing that entered my head, obviously. And then there was a few wild hogs in the area as well reported. So I thought maybe, is it a hog, you know? These things all run through your head, because obviously with the cat sighting a month before that, I sort of said to myself, well, I have nowhere to go here, because the trees in this area are all water willow. They're not even worth trying to climb onto a log and it'll snap in your hand, you know? It's so flimsy. But those things all go through your head, and then of course the growling got louder and my chest started to vibrate, and it actually continued for 90 seconds. And I realised then that it wasn't a hog or a cat or a deer or nothing like that. And there's no deer in that area anyway, by the way. You will get the odd one straying through on a very rare occasion, but it's all bogland. So, I mean, that's swamp to these guys in the States. So deer don't like swampland, as you know. So then things all ran through my head. So I said, listen, I just grabbed the batteries, everything, put my pocket on a blue tine. I headed round the back trail. And I actually went live on our Facebook group at this point, because I wanted to maybe try and catch something, you know. And I headed round the back trail, walked for about probably quarter of a mile, and came up level with a different trail. And just as I came level, I'm actually right-handed like most people are, and I had the camera in my right hand. So I was turning into the next trail. So my body and my head would have reached the trail before the camera. Unfortunately, now, some of the guys did say they thought they seen something, but I couldn't see it on the camera. But as I came round the corner, first of all, I seen what Jim will maybe tell you about after this. It was 10 foot tall and completely grey from head to toe. And it just walked across the trail as cool as you like, and just gave me a quick glance and walked off into the woods. And it was probably about 50 yards from me. It's a local grey man. That particular area is known for the Woodwose, which is a different type of Bigfoot creature. But this guy was actually a Squatch, and he's been seen in the area a few times in the past sort of 18 months. It did give me a bit of a fright, because I'm used to the Woodwose there, and they're actually quite friendly. They would actually almost play with you, you know, whistle back to you and things like that. But this guy was as grumpy as heck. You know, and you could tell he was as grumpy as heck.
Yeah. Yes. No.
You know,
that's an awesome encounter. I mean, I know it was terrifying for you. I'm sorry, but it was awesome, and that's an awesome encounter. So, I kind of wanted to ask. So, Jim, earlier you were telling me something that piqued my interest during your story was you were talking about big cats. And I am woefully ignorant of Ireland's ecosystem and what wildlife you have there. So, Jim, can you tell me a little bit about the big cats and other wildlife that you have there?
Yeah, the big cats, they're not native to Ireland. We never had them here, except in the Ice Age, and that we had different ones. But what happened was people, with wealthy people, in the 1970s, were keeping these animals in cages and as a showing off piece of, Look what I have. You know, they were yeah. So they were getting all these exotic cats and different cats, and it seemed to be that the government in Northern Ireland and the UK didn't like this, and they brought in new sanctions and new laws and new rules, and it was costing a lot of money for the people to keep them. So the people that didn't want to keep them and couldn't afford them, before the people came to confiscate them or see or check on them, they just released them into the wild. So as bad as it seems, they released them into the wild, and they're still seen to this day. That was 30, 40 years ago. They're still seen to this day, regular cats. Chris has seen them twice in his area. Literally, I'd say less than a mile and a half from his home when he was driving home at night. So they are in the area. People have seen them. But the general wildlife, what we have, the biggest thing we have here on record is a red fox. That's the biggest predator we have. We don't have any wolves. We don't have any bears. I think the last wolf was shot in 1740, something like that. That was a long time ago. So the biggest one we have deer, lots of deer, different types of deer, red deer, sika deer, fallow deer.
Okay, and you said you have hogs or boar over there as well. People have re-released them into the wild. Yeah, they've on programs and that they're trying to reintroduce them. So we have those in certain areas, but in general, another thing about Ireland is when it's nighttime and you're out at nighttime in the woods where Chris is, if you listen in the background, you can hear a pin drop. We don't have any crickets. We don't have any calling crickets at night like you have. Okay. So if you get Chris to talk again and listen to the background, it's deathly quiet. There's not a sound to be heard. Okay. So you can hear you can hear anything that moves in the woods. You can hear it. Right. No, that's interesting, because over here a lot of the activity we have crickets, but we have birds that will sound off if something's around, or owls will communicate if something's around. So, I mean, do y'all have that same situation over there when you're researching at night?
We do have, we wouldn't have owls. Owls wouldn't be as prominent. You'd very rarely come across an owl, but yes, you would stumble. You'd walk up pheasants and you'd birds from trees, and that definitely would break the other side if you were, if you're stalking around, you will disturb them. But
okay. Jim, while we're on you, how did you get started into this topic?
Usually a long time ago, I remember seeing the Patterson film, and it was amazing to see, and I think everyone was in shock at that time when they seen it. It was like wow, but and then in search of in the old programs, in search of was Leonard Nimoy and that, and then I wasn't as active. I didn't really do it. I had a curiosity about it. Them days you couldn't do there was no internet, so
right.
No, there was no mobile phones. Never mind internet. So, so we've come a long way. So but in the meantime, I met Chris through the internet, through a search. I got searching I just Googled Bigfoot in Ireland, the history of it. And I couldn't believe that there was history here between Bigfoot and dogman-like creatures as well, going back through history and through medieval stories and artwork and paintings and stuff like that. They are pictured in medieval, what do you call tapestries. You can see them on it there. They're going back a long, long way, like before. So that people have seen something,
right?
And so that's how I got into it. I met up with Chris, and in no time we got on like a house on fire. We set up the organization, and we haven't looked back from there. So we're basically 3 or 4 years now. Myself and Chris are being constantly active and setting up. We set up the Facebook group and stuff like that. So yeah, that's where we are now at the moment. So
awesome. All right. And then, Ron, how did you get into this?
Say back in 2010, I saw Jeff Meldrum do a documentary on Discovery about the Independence Day footage, I think it was. That kind of stuck in my head then for a while, and I kind of was going on other directions. And then just out of nowhere, then one of my kids sat down watching Finding Bigfoot. And he said, sit down and watch with me, Dad, So I sat in, being the dad, and started watching it, and kind of sparked up my interest then again. So as soon as I started watching that, I started doing a bit of searching over the internet then. So my focus was more so on America at the time. But then I started seeing a few hits on the UK and up in Scotland. And before long, I was pointed in the direction then of Chris and Jim. So that's where I'm at now. But just a simple program on TV can ignite something,
Oh yeah. A lot of my listeners, a lot of my guests have had that same story, just about, except here. So that's just amazing that you are all getting into it there and, thoroughly researching it there. That's awesome. We did have a question from the chat real quick, and each of you can answer, separately if you want, starting with Chris. Jordan Warner wants to know, are the creature descriptions in Ireland more man-like, ape-like, or both?
I suppose both, probably. The Woodwose is the Neanderthal type, and it's described as looking really between a Neanderthal and a chimpanzee. So only the skin is grey. It doesn't have any hair on its face. It has a rounded head, as opposed to the conical head of Squatch. And it's sort of, the males are reported to be about maximum 7 feet tall. The females can be 5 to 6 feet tall. Okay. So it is quite a different creature. The Irish Bigfoot, the grey man, whatever people prefer to call it gets different names, is generally 9 to 10 foot tall, just the same as what your Squatch is in America. And it has the same hair coming in towards the nose. So on the conical head, of course, it's usually a lot bigger. Now the Woodwose can be pretty sturdy as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the witness in my area, we were talking about earlier, he seen a Woodwose there, and it was 7 feet tall, 7 to 8 feet tall, and it was standing directly behind him. And if it was, the chest was, shoulders were huge, Mm-hmm. So it was built basically like the Hulk, and the features was like between Neanderthal and chimpanzee looking,
Okay. All right. I mean, that's about like here. They vary here from, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, skunk ape, Falk monster. A lot of them have more Neanderthal look, and then some have more like an ape look. So that's good. I had another question. Oh my gosh. Yes, it is winter in Ireland right now. They said it's pretty chilly there at the moment. So Chris is really sacrificing for us. We probably have a good 45 minutes before he turns into a complete popsicle on us. So are there any, and this question, are there any Irish women who research?
Yes.
Okay.
We sure do, yeah.
Awesome.
Not a lot yet, but we have a few, and from all ends of the country, awesome. So right down in the south and a few up north as well.
All right. And because you are in Ireland and, your history and everything, this is a valid question. Do you only research Sasquatch, or do you also look into little people and the Fae or anything like that?
We have members in our organization who are interested in that side of things as well. Okay. Personally, where I'm at the moment, I would put my focus solely into Sasquatch and Woodwose or Wildman But a couple of friends of ours are interested in that aspect of things as well. We do get a lot of reports of other sightings, which we're not 100% sure what they are neither. Flashing lights, even UFOs get reported here as well, if you go into that phenomenon. But all the different kinds of reports that come through are very interesting, but they take you off in a different route, so to speak. But they definitely are reported, yeah.
Okay. And do you guys get a lot of reports of orbs, like glowing orbs, along with Bigfoot?
Chris has a few, I think.
Yeah. Well, incidentally, we done a live feed on the Facebook group Cryptovania. It was February 2019, and we were actually a good bit halfway through the live feed, and I didn't obviously see it was actually in the same area. I didn't actually see it at the time because I was too busy watching the woods and watching where it was going, and the camera was sort of pointed the other way, And Tommy Cooper, who was on screen with me, was shouting at me, Chris. And he says, what, Tommy? And he says, UFO directly ahead. And sure enough, there was lights. Now, it's debatable whether it was a UFO or whether it was orbs or what it actually was, because it was just above the tree line. And I know that area pretty well, especially since then, because there's a big gap in behind within a bunch of trees. There's a big gap there. And it moved up and down in between the that tree line. So it was coming up and it was moving along, I guess, and moving back down behind the tree, and you can see all the wee lights behind the trees, and then it came back up again and all. So we don't know whether it was a UFO or orbs, but I know some of the members of the IBRO, not just in Ireland, but maybe in Britain and in the States as well. We have members all across the world.
Okay.
They have actually seen a lot of that themselves, yeah.
Yes.
In England, in North America, and of course, I believe, well, I don't know for sure whether it was a UFO or was it orbs, but it was definitely one of the two. It certainly wasn't Bigfoot.
Right. It was abnormal, for sure.
Yeah.
I've been hearing
definitely
more and more and more stories of people seeing orbs. And so that's just, something, it's one of my new standard questions I ask whenever I talk to other Bigfoot researchers or a research organization like yourselves. So that's why I ask. So, Jim, you have had experiences, correct?
Yes, I can tell you a couple, all right, yeah. Well, one in particular, when it was the first day of filming for the new documentary, part 2.
Okay. And
we had filmed a bit of stuff in the morning, and we were having a break. It was a really, really cold morning. I think it was about 11:30 or maybe noon, so we decided to send Ron and our cameraman Ben back to the vehicles, bring back some of the equipment that we didn't need, some tripods and stuff like that. So they were coming back, and just before they came back, myself and Chris were there, and Chris said that he could hear chatter, like talking. He said, it was the classic samurai chatter that you guys talk about. And we heard that a little. I didn't hear it because I was sort of setting up a little sort of a picnic area for the, to feed the boys with soup and sandwiches and coffee and stuff like that. So with that, we heard a call. Of course, this was all off camera because we were having a break. And Ron and the cameraman were about 80 to 100 yards away from us. I put my hand up to stop the guys. And at that moment, there was a scream that came about 80 to 100 yards further on down the trail. And to this moment, I have chills. My hair is standing up my arms thinking about it. It sounded like a woman screaming, really high pitch. And then it oscillated and quivered and went right down, deep. And I looked at Chris, and Chris looked at me, and we looked back at Ron, and we couldn't believe it. I think Ron was in a better position because he was uphill a little bit from where we were, so he would have heard. I just asked Ron to comment on that.
Yeah, we were actually walking down, say, towards Jim and Chris, and when Jim put his hand up to tell us stop, we just stopped straight away, and we could just hear this coming across the bog area or the swamp. Now, just keep in mind that the trees in this swamp area are no more than 20 feet, 25 feet high. That the elevated area that we were on, we could see right across, and there's nothing there, because I had researched that area and I had investigated it for part of the first documentary. You can tip on that in a while, but there's nothing else around that area, and the sound that was coming over, like as Jim said, it started off at a high pitch and it just bellowed out into this big boom of a roar. And it must have carried on for like 30, 40 seconds, just constant. Like, and it kind of stopped and it was just pure silence. It was eerie, to say the least, anyway. The hairs are standing up in my arms too.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, so what was your first thought when you heard that? What's the first thing that came to you that you thought it could be?
The initial high pitch sound, I thought it could be like a donkey, like an ass or a mule. Mm-hmm. But they would not have the lung capacity to give out such a sound and to bellow. Now, I live in the countryside. I have cows, foxes, I have horses, I have a donkey just 2 fields up from me here. Mm-hmm. I hear them all the time. Nothing made a sound like this ever. Mm-hmm. That was my initial thought, but when it bellowed out into the deep, heavy sound, I was like, no, this couldn't be real, Yeah.
Right.
It's like, wow.
Oh my gosh. Jim, what was your initial impression of that?
It was a bit very spooky. I looked at Chris and Chris looked at me, and I think Chris's jaw was on the floor looking back at me, and it was like, I just asked Chris about that to have his opinion on that. Chris, you want to comment on that?
I always thought, to be honest, it was like, the initial, obviously it's a bit frightening at the time, but if you can sort of imagine one of those really amazing comedy films, mm-hmm. Sort of afterwards we all sat down and had tea, after this, in the spot where this happened, and I mean, right. It was like, rah, and then tea.
I mean, what can you do with it? I mean, and so did you guys have any other things happen while you were filming?
Yeah, there was another episode during filming for part one. There was myself and Chris were walking up this berm, a high berm that overlooks the bog. It's in between. It's a bit of dry ground. Both sides of it was left and right was swampland. And out to my left there was a bit of an area, say about 100 yards across, that was heavily wooded across the swamp. And I just got a fleeting glimpse of something tall, grey, going from left to right very fast. And all I could say at the time, when I had a quick glance, I turned, it was like, a big metal sheet, a grey metal sheet of steel going from left to right. It was that big and that quick. And I said it to Chris at the time, and he had the camera pointing the other direction. So unfortunately, of course, Chris was there for that one as well. Chris, do you remember that one?
Yeah, well, I didn't actually see it at the time. I was busy setting up the camera or whatever I was doing. Whenever you seen that, but that actual spot, Lauren, which is it's very, very strange. That's the spot where Jim seen that, right? That's also the spot where we were sitting having tea. Where Jim actually seen the grey squats running. It's also the exact same spot where we're seeing the orbs or the UFOs on the live feed with Cryptovania last year. And it's also the same spot where Jim and I were stood during filming Walking with the Wildman and the IBRO. The two Bigfoots were directly behind Jim. They all happened on exactly the same part. I mean, literally on the same 2 footsteps of ground.
Man, that sounds like a very good area. Very active.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Is that the only experience that you had, Jim, or other experiences? Do you have any other experiences?
Yeah, we had another one when we were doing calls, and I have radios here, walkie-talkies. So myself and Ron were in one area of the bog, and Chris and the cameraman were in another area, and I think this is best talked about by Chris, to be honest, because Chris was the one doing the calling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I actually point that one towards Ron, but I can add to that. First of all, yeah, me and Ben, the camera guy, were I suppose about a mile and a half from those guys, and blasted off a call, and those guys. Well, I radioed through to those guys first of all, and warned them that I was going to do a call in case they got something else. Mm-hmm. I counted to 10 and then blasted a call. And those guys heard that. They were quite chuffed that they could hear it so far away. And the next thing, I got a radio back through from Ron saying, "Did you call again?" And I said, "No, definitely not." Because literally as soon as I done my call, and Ben, who's not here, of course, but he would tell you, literally after I'd done the call, I took a choking fit. I took a real dry mouth after the call, and I was choking.
Yes.
So, it was definitely not me, and Ron says, well then, but Ron can answer that one too, maybe.
Yeah, we were on the radio over and back, so we got Chris to do a call first. So myself and Jim, we were actually recording at the time. We had one of the cameras, and Chris did the first call, and he choked after about a second of it, and it stopped. And myself and Jim were looking at each other like, say, is that all he did? So he radioed back and then said, "You got a fit, you got a choke." So he let one off again anyway. And I'd say not more than 3 or 4 seconds later, we had a second call. So where I was actually facing the direction where Chris was, and he left off his call, and about 4 seconds later there's another call from my right, mm-hmm. which is the opposite side of the bog where Chris was. Mm-hmm. So I just turned to Jim straight away. I said, "Did you hear that?" And Jim said, "Yeah." So we radioed back to Chris and said, "Was it one call or two you did?" He said, "Just one." And I was like, "Oh." So we actually got an almost identical call. And again, just to reiterate the area that we're in, that it's a bog area or a swamp. Mm-hmm. There's no high trees, so it's not in a valley, mm-hmm. so there's no echoes neither. So we could rule that out again also. And it wasn't someone walking their dog screaming back at Chris neither. So.
You would hope. How did the call differ from Chris's call?
It's slightly different in pitch, okay. But like I'm big into music. I know vocals, sounds, everything. It did come in a deeper pitch, mm-hmm. but similar, and the sound was actually would have matched him for volume as well. No problem.
Okay.
That actually came from behind us, Ron. Do you remember the sound came?
Yeah. Over to the right behind. Yeah.
Chris's call came from the front towards us, and the reply came from behind us. So Chris didn't hear it, so that was an unusual one. But there was another time when myself and Chris were out squatching by ourselves with another member of the IBRO that was with us. Anthony was with us at the time. We went to a different location, another active location, and I was behind Chris, about 100 yards behind Chris. It was black dark, not a sound to be heard. We went into the woods, and the sort of ramparts where you walk around, public walkways, we went around. So Chris decided to let out a real long call, heavy call. And just as he did, I was 100 yards back, and Chris couldn't hear it because he was calling. But to my left, about 150 yards in and up the hill, it sounded like a car crash in the woods, snap, bang, crash. Something, whatever it was, got spooked and was going away from us. The noise was unbelievable. The heavy boughs being smashed and cracked and stuff like that. I said it to the boys, so we proceeded to that location. Unbelievably, we went in, and Chris says we'll go in here into this. So we went off the path, and we went into heavy brush, and we got in about a couple of 100 yards in. We actually got lost on the way back. We couldn't find a way out. It took us a while to get back. We got a bit spooked. It took us a while to get out of it, but
yes.
When we did get in there, we thought we heard footfall, say in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris says, right, turn everything off, turn all the lights out. So we turned it out. You couldn't see your hand in front. It was black dark.
Mm-hmm.
When we turned the lights back on the front of us, there was footfall and noises to our left. So we did the same again, turned them on and off again. And then, lo and behold, there was noises to our right. So at that stage, we said, right, that's it. And we lit up the place like Christmas. And
yes.
and we tried to get out of there quick as we could, but we lost our bearings, and it took us a while to get out. So we got a bit spooked at that one.
Mm-hmm.
That was a scary one.
All right, so that one was intense. Okay. All right. And then, Ron, have you had any other experiences besides these?
All my experiences I've had was with the guys during filming.
Okay.
Because I'm 5 hours drive from Chris.
Okay.
And 2 hours drive from Jen. So basically any time we were meeting up was to go filming. But we've had a few hair-raising moments during filming too. A lot of it on film, thank God, which we'll see in part 2. I wasn't on the first documentary, so I was brought in as an independent investigator, so to speak, for part 2. Mm-hmm. Just kind of going over what the guys had found in part 1, basically.
Okay.
But even doing my own small bits of research, I've found structures and stuff like in areas, in the last few months. Yeah, so I'm getting a few reports as well from people across the country who have had experiences that they can't explain, so people are starting to open up a bit more, which is very good also.
That's good. Especially, so is the topic of Bigfoot or, anything related like that, is it as taboo there as it is here?
Worse.
Worse, yeah, because they're not.
That one, Chris, you can answer that one. It's Ron is right. It's worse. It is worse. Okay. Chris.
Yeah, most definitely. Multiplied by 100%. Yeah, it's one of those things that you have to really squeeze out of people, and I think I suppose there's no really if you look at the population density of North America and Ireland, I suppose. If you worked out those figures, it wouldn't be much different, But because Ireland is only like 6-7 million population, whatever it is, obviously that's going to make it more likely or more unlikely that people are going to come forward.
Right.
But as I say, if you weigh that out with the population of the states, etc., it would work out something the same. Mm-hmm. And I actually spent a lot of time a few years ago and worked out the figures that I sort of added up the amount of sightings that there has been in Ireland versus the population, and then done the same with the states, not with North America, now just with the US, with the sightings inside the US and the population. And I can't remember the exact figures now, but if you looked at the percentages, it worked out exactly the same.
Really?
even the amount of sightings per head of population worked out exactly the same.
Okay.
Which was very strange.
That was actually one of the questions from the chat. Ramona wanted to know, is there a map of sightings there?
Yeah, we have actually created a map, and I think it's on our public Facebook page somewhere. If they want, we can repost that because it's probably down the page somewhere. But sure, we can definitely repost that on our Facebook page later. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Are there a lot of Bigfoot researchers over there, or I mean?
Yeah, well, we have 32 members here. In our group, there's another few research groups as well. So I suppose, well, there's people who aren't part of research groups as well, just like in the States too, you know what I mean? So
right, yeah.
I suppose there's maybe a couple of hundred anyway, but I suppose our organization would be probably the biggest.
Okay.
Obviously we've got a wider membership in the States and in Britain and other parts of the world as well. But yeah, there's probably a couple of hundred that I know of anyway.
Okay. Another question from the chat from Lane. What do you think the population is in Ireland of these creatures?
That even the figures that they come out with North America, something like 5,000 individuals. I mean, there's probably 5,000 squatches in Oklahoma, in my view. I just think that figure, whoever came up with that, in North America is in cuckoo land. Okay. There's more chance of going and seeing a couple of berries. I mean, these things are everywhere. This particular area that I'm in now, here, it's a small bog area. It's got a full clan of woodwose here. We've found all the prints. We've found mommy. We've found daddy. We've found the babies. We've found the teenagers. All different sizes of prints. So there's a full clan here. My second research area, which is about 15, 20 miles as the crow flies here, there's a complete clan there of Irish Bigfoot. They're only up the road from the Woodwose. So, I mean, and I've seen those guys too. I can elaborate on that for you if you want. But there's a full clan in that area as well. So that's just a localized area there of 15 to 20 mile. And we have at least, what I reckon, 7 to 8 squatches in peatlands, and about roughly the same here where I am now in Woodwose. So that's just within 15 miles.
Right. So a question from Stephen. He wants to know, have you established travel patterns there? Do they stay in that area? Do they move as the seasons change?
I haven't seen anything to suggest that. The only thing that I've seen is that this area here is generally known as a woodwose territory. And like I said, the squatch that's been seen here a few times, the grey squatch, he is either passing through or he's been removed from his clan, which that's the one I believe. He's been removed from his clan up in peatlands below Loch Ness. I believe he's been booted out by the alpha male. And that could suggest he's on the move, or it could just suggest that he's been, like I said, like I believe he's been booted out and he's tried to make home here where I'm sitting now. Whether the Woodwose here have accepted them into their group, I don't know. I don't believe so. But there is evidence to suggest that yes, because tree structures have been found at intervals along river routes, along canals, and those sorts of things. So yeah, it's very possible. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So and everybody just, I am getting to your questions. I just want to kind of get to the questions as we approach those topics, or I will go back and approach those questions. I just don't want to be, popcorning all over the place. I want to try to stay on topic as much as possible. So we had a question on whenever you guys research, one of my questions I sent to you guys was, what techniques do you use? What equipment do you use? Do you go during the day, at night, so?
Yeah, we'll let Chris answer that one. Chris is our tech guy.
Okay.
Anything that we can get our hands on, basically.
Yeah, same.
I find drones great. I don't know whether it's the sound of the drone or the flashing lights that intrigues them. That's up for debate. I personally think it's the little flashing lights, if you're using them at night time. That's probably my favorite technique. I actually seen three hour squatch within about 15 minutes by doing that. I can elaborate on that one shortly if you want, Lauren. But yeah, drones, I suppose, music, generally just making noise does work. But definitely the drones, I think. And well, some will argue a laser pen is actually quite good too. We've used laser pens, and that has brought forward some activity. It has also lost me activity because I actually was a bit foolish and shone a laser pen directly at a squatch. And you actually seen it jumping out of the tree. Do you know what I mean? And it was away like the hammers, so they obviously don't like that. Right. So I suppose it's okay if you're shining the laser pen about and stuff like that. But just for yourself and anybody watching, don't shine a laser pen directly at them because they don't like that, obviously. Yeah. But one thing that's really, really good is an infrared illuminator. Okay. So, yeah, you can actually buy them on Amazon quite cheaply. Hold on, I'm stuck in my teeth. I bought one on Amazon. I think it was like £11. It was about $13 or $14. And we actually can't see infrared light, obviously, right? Because we're humans, but they can, right? And if you have an infrared illuminator torch, just shine it through the woods, and they can see that because many researchers believe that they see an infrared light, so they're nocturnal, so they can see at nighttime. Just as many believe they use infrasound as well to disable their prey and stuff like that. And that's actually how we got the Bigfoot directly behind Jim and Walking with the Wildman, because we were in complete darkness. We had no lights on whatsoever. Only the infrared illuminators were on. So they've obviously seen that and they've come right in to see what's going on, and that actually worked a treat. So I would say between that and the drone would be my favorite sort of option,
Okay, yeah. Do you guys use, thermal and all the night vision, all of that as well? Oh yeah,
we've got all that. I actually had to sell my thermal camera, unfortunately, there, but we've got a great infrared system. So the infrared system that we use for filming the movies, it literally lights up the woods. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's unbelievable how it does it, because if you're standing there, right, you can't see a thing. You cannot see 1 inch in front of you, but you turn this illuminator on and look through the viewfinder of the camera, you can see the moon. So they really are some job. The infrared is definitely the best in my view for squatching. Yeah.
Okay. And so you said, some of the techniques you use, you do call blasting, you do just calls, you do the laser pointer that you recommend other people maybe don't point directly at the squatch. And do you do wood knocks and such?
It depends on where you are, obviously, too, because the Woodwose here don't do wood knocks. Okay. So it's only the grey man, the same as the American squatch, that does that. And the Woodwose generally go better with whistles. So they've actually copied me directly what I've done, and they actually were that good at it. I thought maybe it was an escape part or something like that, at one point. But the Irish squatch, of course, responds to knocks. And I suppose over the summertime, I think it was maybe July, August, the last time I got a few knocks back. And it was actually that intense. They actually kept knocking. So I knocked a few times, and they kept doing it. And I thought maybe because of that I've maybe got another set of squatchers out here, you know.
Right.
I may knock until another set of squatchers, right? But that continued. And then all of a sudden, about 15 minutes after that, I was standing nice and quietly, and about 50 yards from me, boom, on the tree.
Okay. So
it was literally 50 yards, and it came up right up to me, knocked on the tree, and I said, right, okay, it's not squatchers, right? No. So I started to move out and headed towards the car, right? And I was sort of about half a mile walk back to the car, and they were still knocking, even though I threw my stick away. And I was heading to the car, they were still knocking. What they're looking to play, I don't know what they were looking to do, but they kept knocking. You know, I turned around and I just shouted, "Listen, I gotta go home."
They were probably like, "Let's see how you like it," and they just went to town on on knocking. So do you guys?
There was another one, Lauren. There was another. Sorry, stop you there. There was another technique that we came up with, which was a baby crying through a megaphone in the middle of the woods.
All right.
And as Chris would tell you, it would make the hair stand up on your back listening to it. It was very, very spooky. And unfortunately, it had the wrong effect. I think Ron was there, and it brought in a big cat, and it growled behind Ron, and we had to abandon that fairly quick. But
oh my gosh,
that was one of the ideas that we did.
I mean, I think in the first Walking with Wildman film, I think Chris said, one of you said, you know, that you had heard a big cat, or you thought it was a big cat, and that you would face a Woodwose any day versus a big cat. I'm the same way. Like big cat, that's something I'm very, very scared of in the woods. I get very nervous if I think that I'm being stalked, or, you know. Yeah.
There is a story there, I think Chris has it there, about when he got the railway sized sleeper sized log thrown at him. If you want to tell that one, Chris.
Yeah, that was my second most ever encounter. My first encounter was, I suppose, something similar, only there was nothing actually thrown at me. But on that occasion was one of the times that I heard the chatter, and I had heard chatter on my right hand side, which indicated there was two different voices. So it indicated to me that there was two squatches, these were Woodwose, so there was two of those, right? And just shortly after that, the chatter just stopped. A few seconds later, I heard a massive groan on my left. And just as I heard that, I started to hear the feet on my left walking beside me. So it was probably 40, 50 feet away on my left. And you could clearly hear the bipedal walking. Now, the thing about that was it's bogland. There's a lot of water, right? So I thought, maybe, is this a fox or a badger or something that got swimming? And I sort of tried to gather my thoughts, you know, because you try to pass these things off. If you've ever been on vacation, right, and you've been in the kids' end of the swimming pool, and have you ever walked around and, you know, walked in the pool and pushed your legs forward in the pool, so you get that swishing sound rather than swimming.
Right.
Where if you're swimming, you're getting the splash down. This was the swish, 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 swish. Now that water is about 4 feet deep.
Oh.
And this was walking with ease through that.
Right.
Right. And it was about at least 300 meters to my car from there. Got up to the end of the trail. This followed me the entire way, and actually had my car in my sights. And I just sort of turned around to my right slightly, and as I done that, I heard a swish coming through the air. Heard the movement of the air going past me, and plunk on the ground. A railroad size sleeper log was landing right beside my feet. Now, I don't know whether it tried to hit me or missed me deliberately, but it done that there. It landed behind me, and I heard like a bit of a grunt after that. And I said, okay, it's time to go. And lucky enough, I was only a few steps at that point from the car. And it was one of those ones, Lauren, where you actually jump in the car and you're expecting it to come to the window, you know. So it was that one was actually pretty frightening because it was only my second ever encounter.
Right.
I didn't know what to expect, and I was just waiting for that Macker encounter where it sticks his head out through the hedge, you know.
Yes.
When he Macker had his when he was a wee lad, it just stuck his head outside the hedge right beside him, you know. So I was waiting for that in the window with a big hand on the window, you know. So
that is terrible.
That was pretty intense, yeah.
That would be enough to run me out of the woods. I mean, and that was actually one of the questions from the chat was, do you have any reports or experiences with aggressive encounters?
Jim or Ron?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had this, I'd say aggressive, from my recollection, they tend to frighten the life out of people, you know, and they can get really, really, really close up on people. Literally, people can turn around and are standing behind them. And how something so big can get so close without being heard is, I don't know. I don't know how.
I know. It's frustrating. Ron, do you have any aggressive encounters? No?
No. What we do have is an upside-down tree structure up in one part of the forest. Big Dog Forest is called. That's an area that we have researched, and we've been close to there for filming as well. And it's Sasquatch country up there, you know. They're 10 foot up there. And I've seen other structures up there too to tell me there's a big display of dominance up there, and I reckon they're fairly aggressive too. But upside down tree is a big feat of strength, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it's what do you think? Because you've obviously come across structures. What do you think they are? Or their purpose, I guess.
Well, the purpose for structures.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the tree bends, I think they're directional posts, I think. Mm-hmm. We found a big tree bend with two other smaller bends behind them, pointing to water source. Mm-hmm. The upside down trees, I think, are a marker. They're probably territorial marker. I've seen a few tree snaps here, but they're 50-50, you know. You can't 100% say they're made by Sasquatch, you know. Right. I've seen a couple of X-bends, all right, as well, big X's. Mm-hmm. But definitely markers, they're marking their area and they're directional also. Right.
I agree with that. I've had that same experience here, and I know a lot of other people who have as well. So yeah, same across the world apparently. Yeah, so I had another question from JJ, and so Ron, if you want to answer, have you had reports of smelling them? What do they smell like over there?
Funnily enough, I was out in a part of the woods a few weeks ago, and I had my young lad with me, and just totally off the cuff, I remember I did some loud clapping. It was late in the evening, and it was in the middle of nowhere, and there was actually like a knock or a clap back from in the woods, and I didn't say much about it to my young lad. I didn't want to spook him too much. But as we were walking on, he just turned and says, "What's that awful smell?" And I was there, "Are you serious?" Like, yeah. And just totally innocently, he said it like, I was there, "Let's keep walking, we keep going a bit quicker, you know." But we haven't got much reports. I think Chris had one time he said he could smell something when he passed an area, but that was in Woodwose territory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if he had any up in his other research area where the Sasquatch is. But I know if Chris can remember that day. I remember him doing a live feed all right that day, and he did say he got like a weird smell all right.
Yeah,
there is a section. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
That was just a few weeks back, actually, and it was one of the nights that we got the IBRO on the live feed, and when I actually got down to that spot where it was, then I did smell a stench that I can't even explain, to be honest. It's something that I haven't really came across much. I think that was only the second time. But yeah, definitely a wicked stench. Yeah.
Okay, what did it smell like? Like, did it smell like feces? Did it smell like trash, urine, bog, water?
Probably all of it put together, Lauren. Yeah. Yeah.
Decomposing flesh.
It smelled like something that hadn't been washed in years.
Okay. Gross.
You know, if you ever walk into the store and you smell that guy at the teller who hasn't, maybe, you know what I mean? Yeah, something like that multiplied by 100.
Okay. Yeah.
We had that during filming, Chris, if you remember. It's actually in the first documentary when we were in the wood and it starts to sleet and snow. And I said to you, what is that smell? It came from nowhere. There was nothing around us. We couldn't, but it disappeared as soon as it came. We followed it down to the main road, but it disappeared. It was a mixture of rotting flesh, silage, it was I don't know, but we were in an area where there was no farmers spreading, say, pig slurry or anything like that, but it was really, it was rank. It was very bad now, but it disappeared within 60 seconds. It was gone, so we don't know what it was. It was unusual.
Okay. All right. We've had a lot of, usually that's how I know they're around when I'm researching, is I'll just get this overwhelming smell of urine. And it's like urine and mildewed foliage, mulchy, like mildewed leaves or rotting log mixed with urine and sometimes skunk. And it's just, and then it comes and then it just goes away and I don't smell it again.
Yeah.
So there's another question from the chat from Cryptidville. Do you have a lot of people reporting seeing bioluminescence with Bigfoot eye shine? So, eye shine happening without a light source, or have you experienced anything similar to that?
I haven't seen any Bigfoot eyes that have been reflected off a light source. All the IBRO that I have seen has all been self-sufficient. It doesn't need a light source to show up. Whereas if you had a wolf or a fox or a deer or whatever, you have to shine your car headlights on that or a torch on that to make that glow. But Bigfoot doesn't need that. Definitely not.
Okay. Have you always, I know that in the documentaries there's red eye shine and that you guys have all mentioned red eye shine. Do you find other colors of eye shine? Maybe depending on different light sources or independently?
White eye shine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So white and red.
Chris was on a live feed a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure if it was the evening where he had the laser pen, but I was watching on the live feed, and I don't think Chris could have seen it too well, but I seen a white eye shine, and it was like up in the tree, and it just when he brought he had his torch on. When he brought his torch on towards the trail and off to the side where the eye shine was, you could just see the eye shine just zipping off as if it leapt off the tree. And then you could see it when there wasn't actually a light source on it. You could actually see it in the picture. So
it was still glowing after the
the
headlamp, you guys. So just for my American people who don't understand, a torch is a flashlight or headlamp. Sorry.
Yeah.
To translate for some people.
Yeah.
I have had some comments on the accents, and you guys, I wanted y'all to all know, these guys are doing me a favor. Actually, not just me. They're doing you all a favor. They are actually slowing their accent down so that everybody can understand them. They're doing us a solid right now, us dumb Americans that, can't understand any other accents. So I appreciate you guys slowing it down for us so that we can hear you. And then we had another question from Lane Goodspeed. Thank you, Lane, for all of your questions, by the way. Thank you, all of you, for all of your questions. These are great questions. Do you think that the Bigfoot mimic human and other sounds? So mimic human sounds back to you, mimic other animals?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah.
Chris has had that happen to him. Chris has actually had that happen to him a few times.
Okay.
Yeah, the best one
Whistles
there
and stuff.
to
They
touched
whistle
on
and they
earlier
whistle
was,
back.
yeah, the best one that I touched on briefly earlier was the whistles. Not far from here, I suppose, a couple of miles from here. Done a few whistles and distinctly, like if I can repeat it, sort of. So I made it deliberately distinctful, and I've done exactly the same thing back.
Really? So
And
imitated it.
very, very deep, I suppose the funniest occasion was where I am here now, the same spot where I got growled at. It was just over the summertime. I was down retrieving the trail camera, and I think it was a juvenile Woodwose because it almost sounded like it was trying to learn to whistle. So it sounded like an old house, say like an old haunted house, Lauren, where you're sleeping overnight and you can hear the wind creeping through the creaks in the house, that's exactly how it sounded. Sort of. It's hard to do, but it was all. I thought the first thing in mind, it was a juvenile trying to whistle, and there was no wind that night whatsoever, so, I actually felt sorry for it because I couldn't actually whistle, and it was trying to get my attention. I did whistle back to it, and it kept going, even though I had stopped, and bless it, it was trying its best, but it was only a learner, I suppose.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. The poor little guy. He was trying his best, I mean, you have to think, I just wonder how much their mouths resemble ours, because I would feel like in proportion to their bodies, they have bigger mouths and so bigger lips and, trying to whistle and imitate us. And it probably sounds like a woodwind versus, a flute or something, Yeah,
that one actually did. That one did sound like that. Sort of in between that. And like I said, I put it in mind to an old house on a wild winter's night. But very directional at the same time. Hard to explain. But definitely the first thing I thought of was juvenile. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so have you heard them imitating other animals? Like here, we'll hear owl calls, but it's like a very sick owl. It's not, that owl is not healthy. And also it sounds there's a different resonance to it than a normal owl call. It's a deeper owl call or just something's off about it.
When we were filming for part 2 of the documentary, it was midnight. I think we were finishing up and I could hear like a little bird chirping at midnight. Now, I'm not 100% sure what it was, but we don't have many birds here that chirp during the night. Any nocturnal animals, as you said, would be an owl. This was like a little bird chirp, and the bird chirping was actually moving. So when we came out of the woods in 3 spots, and we were still getting activity there at the time. I had a parabolic microphone on, and I was still getting a lot of movement in the woods, but I was still getting this like a bird chirping sound. So kind of unexplainable.
Definitely. I mean, we get that a lot here with other animals as well. That actually takes me to a question I had earlier. Do you prefer day or night research? And for that reason, because, you know, the birds and everything might be more active in the day for you guys.
Nighttime for me, anyway, Lauren. Definitely, as you know, as I said, we do have crickets and grasshoppers and stuff like that, but they don't make a sound at nighttime. We don't have the calling like you guys have. It's deathly quiet over here at nighttime. You can hear a pin drop.
Okay.
So that's, you know, in our favor, as they say, and you'll see a lot of that in part 2 of the documentary as well.
Okay.
So
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna follow up on a few of these questions, and then we will talk about the film, and then I will let you go so that Chris can go thaw out in his vehicle. Okay, so is there a trend? All right, so there are 2 separate questions. I'm going to kind of combine them. So do you have a lot of caves over there? And is there a trend of sightings near these caves? Also, is there a trend of these creatures being near graveyards? Because here we have a lot of sightings near graveyards. So caves and graveyards.
yeah, the graveyards, we do have the locations we were in Big Dog. There was graveyards where we were, all right, and it is an active area where we were. It's a vast area between the lake. The loch is it's vast. There's about 200 or more islands on the lake itself. It's surrounded. It's medieval. It goes back to way back in Celtic history. You have old monasteries that were there 1,000 years. Graveyards going back, but yeah, they do frequent, and in that area. I'm not too particular. I think Chris might be better educated on that question for the for the other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that area, particularly you mentioned, Jim, the Big Dog area is actually part of the Marble Arch Caves Geopark. So the area is completely littered with caves. They're all over the show. And I've actually been in a few, and wow, they're beautiful. They have all those big, what's those big things called that comes down from the ceiling in the cave?
Stalactites and stalagmites.
Yeah, they have all those. It's beautiful. I actually think they actually filmed an episode of Doctor Who in there years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I think they filmed the Doctor Who in there at one point in the 70s, yeah. Very, very beautiful, but the whole area is littered with caves. No actual reports that I know of a Bigfoot in or around the cave, but I would say that they do definitely use them in the area, yeah, most definitely.
Okay. And then I had another question back to the UFOs or orb or whatever you saw. Do you have a lot of reports with Sasquatch and UFO or alien connections? Or do you, what are your thoughts on that as well?
Well, in my area where I am now, Jim and Anthony have been here a few times with me and seen the same thing. I see it quite regular. Even last week, I was sitting quite close to here on the phone with Ron. I can't remember what we were chatting about, but probably arranging something or whatever. And I was just mentioning to Ron at that point too that I'm sitting watching UFOs moving about in the sky here. There's been times where I've had movement in the forest and clearly Bigfoot activity, and at the same time you can see lights moving about in the sky. Yeah, so I don't personally believe that there's a connection.
Right.
I believe that maybe they're just as much interested in the Bigfoots as what they are us. That's just my view. Maybe they're doing abducting them as well. I don't know, but certainly, yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't fancy abducting a Bigfoot. No offense to the aliens, but beam and then like, rah,
Yes, yeah, they don't know quite what they're getting a hold of. Most of the abduction stories I've heard, the person is kind of, paralyzed and can't move, so maybe they would do that to the Bigfoots. I don't know. Okay, and then Zan has a question. Have you ever experienced zapping or infrasound? Any of you?
Oh, yeah.
really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, we were. Yeah. Oh yeah, big time. Only a month ago, myself
Really?
and Chris, well, maybe a little bit more than a month ago, a month and a half maybe. We were filming a couple of editing shots that we needed to do for finishing up part 2 of the documentary. So we went up, and I'd only got 5 words to say on the. It's all my line was 5 words, and it was in the meantime. Chris had heard I had gone back to the car to get more equipment, and Chris said he heard a cracking, a big large bang, a knock or a crack in the woods, about 80 to 50 yards away from him. And from that moment on, when that happened, we came back. We tried to film to get this finished, and I couldn't get 2 words together. I didn't feel well. So Chris says, okay, I'll do it. And Chris couldn't do it either. So whatever happened, I got a fierce headache. My eyes were on fire. Chris got a headache at the same time. We didn't feel well at all. And we actually got what we wanted to do. But when we got home, I drove home from the north that time. It took me 2.5 hours to get home. And all the way home, I had a massive headache. Mm-hmm. And the same, when I got home, I texted Chris. I was in bed. I couldn't sleep. My head was pounding. I didn't feel well at all. And Chris said he felt the same. So I believe, as Chris does, we got hit with something. Mm-hmm. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. That's actually my 3rd time that I've been hit by infrasound. So I told Jim that this actually, our version was actually quite mild compared to the other 2 times. And that may possibly be because there was 2 of us. Mm-hmm. Is it maybe possible that if it's one Bigfoot and they're focusing that infrasound on one person, it would be more intense? If it's one Bigfoot focusing on 2 people, maybe it doesn't do the same justice. I don't know. But certainly, definitely Jim's 100% right. Everything Jim said, it happened to me as well. But of course, the worst one that ever happened to me was out in peatlands. I was by myself. I actually found myself in a very, very thick part of the woods, and I actually got a little bit worried. And I actually prayed for her to get me out of here. And just as I'd done that, I got hit by infrasound. The sweat was running off me. It was pumping. I could actually see my heart moving in my chest.
Oh my gosh! And
I thought I was taking a heart attack, you know. Mm-hmm. So I actually had to stop and sit down for probably 40-45 minutes before I could even move. And it was deeply, deeply frightening, especially being so thick in the woods. It was probably about 3 miles from the car, and the woods were so thick. This was during the day, and I could barely see, you know, through the trees. It was so thick, and how I even got in that far is beyond me, to be honest. I was following a small stream, and obviously I walked right into their home, you know, and they've just hit me, and that was it, you know.
Man, that's very intense. You know, that's one of the more intense infrasounds, the stories that I've heard, actually. You know, a lot of people will feel intense fear. They'll feel lethargic. They'll feel a pounding, pulsating in their chest, or they'll feel like a pressure, headaches. I've heard of those, but never. I don't think I've ever heard one quite as severe as that.
Yeah, it's very possible that I probably got maybe hit by a couple of squatches, you know, at the same time. But definitely it was very, very intense and very, very scary. And it took me ages getting back to the car. Obviously I had to wait for a good while before I let myself calm down. And lucky enough, it's actually quite strange the way your mind works, but I was convinced I was so deep in. I was very deep in, but little did I know there was actually a trail, probably about 200 yards from me, which was like a godsend. You know, I came across this trail, I got myself up on Google Maps to see where I was. I followed that trail out. I didn't hear anything else after that, thankfully, but yeah, that was probably my most ever intense encounter ever yet.
Oh my gosh, that sounds intense. And then Ron, have you ever experienced that?
No, I've at that evening when the two guys were out doing a bit of filming, I was actually waiting on call. I was supposed to do a video call with them for part of the documentary, and they kept me waiting for an hour and a half. So that's how disorientated they were, you know. So I'm waiting at 6:30 for this video call, and just after 8 p.m. they ring me, you know, and basically they said, yeah, 2 more minutes now, 2 more minutes, just do 5 lines, 5 words, 10 words. They didn't have a clue what they were doing. They were all over the place. Like.
Oh my god.
So that was my experience from it.
Right, you got.
luckily enough, I haven't. No.
Okay, yeah. So you got the side effects of it, you know.
Yeah, negative side. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, there are a lot of people. We had a question from the chat. She wanted to know: do you believe that these guys can cloak or are interdimensional? You know, that is a big thing over here. There are a lot of people who believe that. So along those lines, on what y'all think, what do you think they are? Are they flesh and blood? Are they paranormal?
Myself, I think they're flesh and blood. Very, very close to us, very intelligent. I think that they bury their own. That's why we can't find them, find any bodies anywhere. Mm-hmm. Same in the States. I think they bury their own. So, I know it's a big topic. As I said, I've listened to over 10,000 podcasts over the last eight years. So,
cheers, everyone. Can you guys hear that?
No.
There's something crying. Okay, continue.
Probably when we start talking, it'll start doing it again when we're not paying attention. Yeah.
But they're my views, Lauren. Yeah, I think they're flesh and blood. Very, very, very intelligent. Mm-hmm. I think they bury their own. It's, you know, that's how we haven't found them. It's, as I say, how many people have found a dead bear in the woods? Right. How many people have found a dead wolf in the woods? Nature take care of it fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree with that. Ron, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not too far off that neither. The reason I say that is because throughout, say, Ireland and Europe, especially, they just go back in history for hundreds and hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And on the funny side of it, if they smell so bad, like, wouldn't you think that they get cleaned up if they were coming down on a UFO?
Yeah.
Just joking, you know.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, look, on the cloaking side of things, I wouldn't rule out that their hair could be a small bit translucent, mm-hmm. but I just think that they're just so agile and they move so quick that in a blink of an eye they can clear 10 yards, you know.
Right.
They're just so big and powerful. They can move so quick. And you hear reports of people saying that just with one leap, it cleared 10 yards, you know. Mm-hmm. They have that power to clear such ground so quickly.
Quietly as well.
And quietly, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The lads can testify to that. They've been right up close with them and not even hear them. They've been behind them. I think personally they've been within 20 feet of the guys when I was doing my investigations with them, and they didn't know they were there. Mm-hmm. You know, that's some feat for to be 7 or 8 foot tall and whatever 500 or 600 pounds. It's some feed for an animal, you know,
Right.
or a person, or a thing, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But on my own beliefs, I think they have a crossover of human DNA. And I think that's why a lot of the testing that has been done for DNA sampling has been classed as tampered, because the DNA from humans shows up in it.
I could see that.
They're super intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
They're on a different sense level to humans. They're just so higher up. They know their areas. If you walk into your kitchen and you see a cup on the table or on the counter, you know it shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're like that in the woods. They'll notice things out of place, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're just so highly tuned. Their senses are unbelievable, I think.
Right. No, I agree completely. I tell people that, you know, they sneak into the woods, and I said, you know, if somebody's standing in your living room, even if they're silent, you know they're there because that's your domain, you know, so I feel the same way. Very well said. Chris, so I want to hear what you think they are, but first, one of my bossier listeners and moderators in the chat would like to direct you on how to research, and he said, can you please do a whistle? Or a call or something, and then, you know.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you get that directly back, but I don't usually get a lot from calls, like I say, but that's because I research the Woodwose more than Squatch, I suppose. You know, but I suppose they do calls. They have been reported doing calls, but yeah, whistles, yeah, is definitely the winner for me.
Okay.
But we'll try one again, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, the thing you got to do is not make it like any other bird sound, you know. So if those are the birds in the air, you got to know what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to mimic a bird.
Absolutely.
So you want to make it pretty clear that it's, you know, it's something different to get that back. But
right.
there was something crying there a while ago. I don't know whether it was a fox or maybe something being caught by a squatch. I don't know, because one of the witnesses in this area actually reported that. That's the first thing he heard was an animal being killed.
Oh my gosh!
So the squatch was in the process of making dinner, and that's how the sighting came about. He actually stumbled upon a watcher. Mm-hmm. We believe that it was a watcher at the edge of the woods, and he was making dinner. And he stood up. The squatch stood up right beside the guy. It was literally 5 feet behind him. Literally, that's how close it was. He was looking directly up at it, like that. And it was just breathing down upon him. Heavy breath, just breathing on him.
I can't imagine
as if to say, yeah, you know, the guy that's seen it, you know, his thoughts were, listen, the squatch was looking at me and saying that I am in the process of making dinner here, my sir, and you are not getting my dinner, so back off. That's the impressions that he got, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's pretty interesting. So we'll see if you get something, you know, come investigate you. So what do you think that Sasquatch are? Flesh and blood?
100% flesh and blood. Probably my favourite encounter that I've had, if you can class that as a favourite, was in April 2019. It was an old, wet, damp day, and it's one of the best days in my view to go to the woods because it means that people stay at home. Okay. So I brought the drone with me. I had 6 full batteries for the drone. Each battery lasted about 20 minutes. So I took a big mad route around, and little intervals I let the drone up, flew it over the top of the woods, used up an entire battery, brought it back, walked a bit, done the same again, drone up in the air, back down, walked a bit more and so on. And I'd actually walked about 3 miles by this stage, and the drone had just landed. The last battery, of course, just landed, and I looked over about 300 meters away, and I seen 2 heads popping up and down behind the hedge. And I thought to myself, is it the wind blowing the bushes? Then I realised it's not windy, of course. There was no wind at all.
Right.
These 2 heads were popping up and down. And then I just looked to the right of that, and there was your typical Swatch standing out with the old famous stance, with the arms and stuff to the side, just looking at me. But this was 300 meters away. It was quite a distance, but I could clearly see it. And I said, right, okay. So I headed up the trail more, and probably got about another half a mile up the trail. I'll come on to the cloaking bit in a wee minute, by the way. Up the trail about another half a mile, and looked back towards a line of trees, and I seen something black and huge up the tree. And of course, back to what we said earlier, I thought maybe a big cat, but of course it was a Squatch in the tree. It was watching where I was going. It was one of the ones that I'd seen over there. It was watching me. Now, the trail that I had to take to get back to the car sort of veered back in towards the woods, and actually came back through the woods before I got to the car. And this was about another half a mile later. It was totally silent. By this stage, the rain had stopped, and I went on live on one of our older groups that we used to have, and was walking along the trail, and of course the camera was pointed towards the woods, but there was a lot of bushes beside on my left, and I didn't hear a sound at all, but I just glanced to my left and seen the conical head 10 foot off the ground, walking right beside me, literally right beside me, Lauren. I didn't hear a thing. It just stuck his head down behind the bush. And there wasn't a single sound. Now, that's not to say that cloaking isn't real. I don't know. I can't really comment on people's personal experiences because I've never seen that happening. But I can't discount it. But one theory that I do like, that I heard a few years back, was I think it was some guy in Britain had suggested this. I can't remember his name, but he suggested because Bigfoots are, people believe that they're so like us. Whenever people experience a Bigfoot, say walking towards them and disappearing, or walking by them and disappearing, he suggested maybe that they're actually seeing a ghost of a Squatch that's died possibly thousands of years ago.
Okay.
So, I mean, that could be, I'm not discounting anything, that could be one possible explanation. It could be flesh and blood, but it could also be something else as well.
An apparition.
People have suggested that different species have different traits.
Okay. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. We don't know. No, I think that's a very good theory as well. So I appreciate your theory on that. Okay. So I'm gonna talk about the film real quick. So you made Walking with the Wildman, Ireland's Bigfoot, and then you came out with a second film, and that is the Woodwose, Walking with the Wildman Part 2. So can you tell me a little bit about the first film and what we can expect out of the second film?
I'll let Jim go on that one.
Yeah. Part 2, we where do you start? Part 1, the idea that we had for Part 1 was, the initial idea was to bring more witnesses forward. Okay. If we create something, if we can get this on film, get it out there, and people can see it, it would draw in more of, people could come to us without any fear of, of ridicule. Mm-hmm. They could come to us and tell us a story. We won't tell, we won't give you a name, or anything like that. That was the idea behind it. So that's where the initial first one came from. That was it has roller coastered since then. Part 2 that's coming up. I think you have the trailer there as well,
Right. Yes.
Lauren. It's the first one was we learned a lot from part 1. We did learn a lot from part 1, and we changed things around for part 2. We used more technology, more techniques, different. We had a lot of hardware. We had different techniques, and different, of course, different areas as well. But it is a roller coaster ride. I have to say, part 2 is fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
That's awesome.
So Chris is the guy that's Chris is the director. He would have all the technical details and the storyboard and stuff like that of what we went through. And there is another thing in part 2 that we didn't mention yet was during going from location to location, we were on a boat. We actually hired a boat and big cruiser. And we were cruising up, and we were taking turns of driving. And one stage, I was on the back of the boat, and I had a good pair of binoculars. I was sitting back, having a soft drink, looking at I was using the boat as my viewing point. The boat was going across these islands, and I had the binoculars up on my knees as we were going along and letting the boat do all the viewing for me. So I was just watching the islands passing by. And at one stage, I saw what I'm convinced I saw, which was a 8-foot tall orangutan on all fours facing me with a beard. For 2 seconds. It looked like for 2 seconds. Of course, I couldn't say, hold on, reverse back there. We're on a cruiser, again, you get the turn. And it was on that lake, it's so big, there's a massive current, and we were riding the current down. So it's... That was a bit of the viewing that I got. But Chris also, on his turn of many occasions of sitting on the back of the boat, takes about half an hour, 45 minutes to get to each location. That lake is huge. I think Chris, there, if you want to tell what your story, what you saw.
Yeah, the same sort of thing where we're in between locations. I think we had about a 2-hour run at this stage, Jim. We were going right down from to the next location, which was about a 2-hour cruise on the boat, and same sort of thing, out the back of the boat and just watching the scenery as you do. I think maybe young Ben or Ron was driving, and passing one of the islands again. All these islands are all forested, and they're all sort of some of the islands are only maybe a few hundred yards offshore, so it's no big swim for any animal really. And the same sort of thing, only mine was clearly a conical head, and it was standing up straight, and the head just followed me like that as the boat went, so it was a bit of a distance between us and it, obviously, so it was hard to get a good look at the features, but it was definitely something out of the ordinary there. I was watching us, yeah.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, it sounds like, so how is this film going to be different than the first one? What can we expect that, I know you said where to start and you have a lot to cover on it. But what can we expect this to, because the first one, it had recreations of encounters, and it had you guys covering the ecosystem and the wildlife and everything like that. You did put the footprints in there and everything. So what can we expect out of the second one?
Well, the first thing for part 2 that had to change was bringing Ron Madden on board. And that was for the simple reason being of what happened at the end of Walking with the Wildman, with the IBRO behind Jim himself. So we needed to have an independent adjudicator on that. And Ron wasn't there at the time. So he came in for the opening scenes, which you'll see in part 2. Ron came in to weigh that up, to measure it up, and all those things. We'll not give away what obviously
that's okay.
He thinks at the moment in time. We'll have to watch and see that one, but
right.
Yeah, so Ron came on from there, and yes, we've got recreations and all again, so we're covered with the sightings. We've got the recreations, which are even better. At this time, I don't even know how we reproduced it, but we did. But some amazing shots, yeah. And of course, Ron will fill you in now on what happened to him. He was only initially brought on to come in and do those few scenes, so Ron can fill you in then on how he's actually got to this point.
Okay.
So yes, I was brought in to investigate the IBRO, and that was the first day of filming. And I was there when we got the wailing sound across the swamp that we talked about earlier. Plus with the calls over and back. So as soon as all this stuff started happening, when I started doing my investigating around the area, from that day on, I was 100% convinced that we had Bigfoot, Sasquatch in Ireland. I investigated the area where the guys at the IBRO, and there's nothing else that could have done it. To be honest with you, there's no houses nearby. There's no animals or owls with big red eyes, but I won't say any more into that. But yeah, ever since I saw that from that day, I've been hooked ever since, you could say.
All right. Well, do you guys have anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, well, besides what Jim said, obviously this film's going to be a lot better than the first one. The technology that we've used obviously has been improved. The behind the scenes stuff and the stuff that we use for our techniques and stuff too. But the areas I think that we chose to are some of the most infamous areas in Ireland for Bigfoot activity. We're quite famous for other cryptids like the puka.
Okay, right.
The puka, in my view, the puka is like a small 4-foot hairy creature. In my view, it's a juvenile. It's a misidentification of a juvenile squatch, but those tales go back many hundreds of years. But some of the areas that we filmed in were quite famous for those sightings as well. But the locations that we visited this time, Lauren, has just been out of this world. The Loch Earn and the Big Dog area is amazing. It's literally there's forest everywhere for a start, and you can just literally park the boat wherever you want, get out and walk into the woods. It was not easy, and that's why we chose the route of having the cruiser this time, so we could literally stop where we wanted, jump out, check an area out, because there was times we were driving by and seeing structures and stuff, seeing bands from the shore, so we were able just to pull in and go check it out, you know.
Right. So yes.
It's definitely a great. If anybody lives in the States around some of the Great Lakes or some of the other lakelands in the States, it's definitely a good option to have a cruiser and cruise along the shore, because who knows what you'll see watching you. I mean, there's tales going back in North America. I know the tales of the old Spanish sailors back in the 1600s were cruising along the coast of California, and they reported seeing tall, dark figures watching them from the shoreline.
Right. Yes. As
they cruised past. Some of the earliest sightings in California of squats, even the Vikings went to Newfoundland, I think, and maybe parts of Greenland and Canada, and they seen the same thing, and they were actually met on the shore, on the beach with Bigfoots. According to reports, they're going back to the Viking times, you know. So if anybody has the access to a cruiser, even down rivers through wooded areas, it's an awesome piece of equipment to try and to see something, you know. If you're not going to see a squatch, maybe you'll find where they are. Maybe you'll find where the structures are, or whatever, you know.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's a great piece of advice, if you have that option. All right. Ron, anything to add?
Just it came flashing back to me there. While we were filming, we did one night investigation, and obviously we went back the following day, to survey the area again, to rule out any possibilities of what could have been seen or rule out anything, say like reflections of light or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as we were getting ready to finish up, this couple were out walking, and they were coming up to their car. We were standing in the car park,
Mm-hmm.
and we hadn't spoken to anyone. Now, we had a bit of camouflage gear on us, kind of hunting gear and stuff, but we had a camera with us as well. And we were just standing up, just getting ready, packing up to leave. And this guy was getting into his car, and he just shouted over, "Well, guys, did you find the Yeti yet?" And he smiled and got into the car.
Oh.
And we kind of looked at each other as if, were you talking to that person earlier? And it's like nobody had met the guy.
Oh my
and
God.
do you remember that, guys?
Yeah.
He
He had a smile on his face when he told us, and he sort of winked at us and drove off. Like, what does he know? You know what I mean? There's something.
Oh.
Yeah.
Pity we didn't chase him.
Yeah.
just totally out of the blue, like, and they were kind of knock you for six,
Very
because
strange.
nobody had spoken to that person, like, and it's an active area that's there, like, so it just kind of tells you what a lot of people might see and don't report,
That's interesting. Yeah, and that he knew what you were doing, especially with the topic being even more taboo there than here, That's very interesting.
That actually put me in mind, Lauren. Mm-hmm. If you've ever seen the movie Lake Placid, I'm sure you've seen the movie Lake Placid, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
About the big crocodile.
Yes.
Where these guys are all running about looking for this crocodile for weeks, and this old lady is on the shore and feeds it with cows.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, so it sort of put me in mind of that. Of this old guy. This guy was pretty old. He was probably 80 years old.
Yes.
And it put me in mind of that, where these guys are running about the woods looking for this creature, and he sees it every day of the week. Have you seen the Yeti yet?
Oh yeah.
So
that's his
put
buddy.
me in mind of Lake Placid, yeah.
Yes, that's his pet, and he's just messing with you guys.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And what about you, Jim?
Yeah. Sorry, I just can't get over that guy. Like, as Ron said, I had completely forgotten about that until he said it. Just the smile on his face and the wink and the way he said it and the way he just drove off before we were all left with our jaws open and looking at one another going, nobody, we should have went, stop, tell us more. But
right, yes.
He was gone. It was too late. But it was just, it was amazing. But I'm looking forward to, I hope the guys can watch the trailer for part 2. It's outstanding.
Yes.
I don't know whether you're going to play it there yourself or they can look for it on YouTube. I'm sure Chris has all the details about the Facebook group and that for people if they want to join or have a look and check us out.
Yes. I have been playing the trailer throughout this show over and over. So they do have the chance to see it here, but to see it with audio and to see everything that that the IBRO is working on, you can go to the following places, Chris.
Yes, I think maybe you maybe linked them in the description as well, Lauren, haven't you? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have it in
So
here.
it's just the best place to find us is on Facebook. The Irish Bigfoot Research Organisation on Facebook, and you get the trailer there, and it's full glory. So of course we've got a Facebook group that's just called Bigfoot. There's a couple of groups just called Bigfoot, but this one has got all uppercase letters.
Okay.
And you'll see along the top anyway, it'll say Irish Bigfoot Research Organisation along the top anyway, so you'll not miss it. It'll have a big shamrock beside the Bigfoot, so
Gives it away.
you'll know
there.
it's us. yeah. You'll know it's us.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I think if that's it, I'll go ahead and let you go. Chris, I'll let you go get warmed up. I very much appreciate you guys coming on. It was well worth the wait. And whenever you guys launch part 3, I'll have y'all back on and we can talk some more.
Yeah,
definitely.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I appreciate you. And, I will look forward to seeing part 2, which launches December 1st, 2020. And you guys can find that on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, as well as the first Wildman documentary, also on Amazon Prime. Oh no, Jim's down.
Oops,
He's done.
I dropped my phone. There we go. Sorry about that.
No, you're
Upside down
upside
now. Oh, there we go.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys
There we
go. And y'all go warm up and do what you need to do. And I'm going to give these fine folks some information on events and such. And I will holler at you guys later.
Thank you very much, Lauren.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Good night, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Chill.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Okay, everyone, we have quite a few upcoming events. We had the Texas Bigfoot Conference this past weekend, and it was wonderful. It was my first time attending. I had such a great time there. Got to meet a ton of great people and see the great speakers and vendors and everything. It was really great. So we have a few events coming up this weekend. So in Smith Park in Fouke, Arkansas, we have the 2020 Fouke Monster Halloween Bash. This is being put on by Night Callers Bigfoot Radio, Keith Crabtree, Squatch Dogs, and William Lunsford. So you can check us out there. We're going to, we're going to have trick-or-treating for the kids. We're going to have piñatas with candy. We're going to have drawings and raffles. Donations for those go to the park and also to Tanya Nite, a good friend of ours who is battling cancer at this time. So she will, she'll be, one of the raffles will benefit her. But we plan to have storytelling around the campfire at night. William Lunsford will be leading the storytelling and town hall sessions, so you can actually show up and tell your story, hear other encounters, and meet up with people and network. Some of the best things about these events is meeting new people and people in your area that you can research with or just talk to, and hearing great stories. So we look forward to seeing everyone there. We will be there Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday afternoon. William Lunsford will be taking the Boy Scouts on a nature hike, and everyone is welcome to join him as well, and he'll be kind of pointing out different things. So we look forward to seeing everyone. Also next weekend is the Bigfoot Storytelling Festival. This is around the Oklahoma City area. There's a Bigfoot calling contest and everything, so you can find that all of this information on Facebook for the Fouke Monster Bash as well as the Bigfoot Storytelling Festival. And then also next weekend is the LBL meet and greet, LBL Beast meet and greet, sorry. And that one is also all weekend. And then the following weekend, we have the Boggy Bottom Bigfoot Conference in Colgate, Oklahoma. There's quite a few great vendors going to be there and great speakers as well. I will be attending that one as well, so I look forward to seeing everyone there. All admission fees and everything goes to benefit the robotics program. So you can anything that you spend on that will go towards the robotics program for that school. So with that being said, I would like to just chit chat about our next guest. Our next guest is Doug Hychek. He is the director of Monster Quest, also Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, which is the other project that he's working on. So I hope that everyone is able to tune in for that. It's going to be a great show. We have had Doug on our show before, but it was about 10 years ago. And so when I contacted Doug, and he is so excited to come back on the show. He has a lot of new projects that he wants to talk about, a lot of experiences he wants to talk about. I am very, very, very excited to have Doug on the show. So November 8th at the regular time, 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll have Doug on, and he will tell us all about how he got started and what he has done since we talked to him last, as well as what projects he has in the works. So I hope to see you all there. Don't forget to go like and subscribe on YouTube. That way you can get your live notifications from us. And then also we have our Instagram and our Facebook page where you can go like and you can find out different things that are coming up, different updates. I have a lot of new things going all at one time, and I will be unveiling the big news on different things on those social media platforms. Also, you can join the Night Callers Bigfoot Radio Facebook group, and this is just an extension of the chat to where you can go chat with other people and network and post videos and pictures and learn, see what's going on behind the scenes of the show and everything like that. I appreciate everyone listening. I welcome feedback all the time. If you have someone you would love to see on the show or anything like that, just feel free to message me. If you have any questions about these events, you can also message me. And again, thank you everyone for listening, and I will see you guys in a couple weeks.